What's going on, everybody? As I told Mimi earlier, I said I was going to do this. Peace and good evening, my niggas, to tonight's show of Him and Her TalkSpace with me, your him host with the most champion special life coach, and as always, my fantastic co-host,
Nene Wyndham. Hi guys, and welcome back to our returners.
Yeah, thank you for that. We had a week off. We had to just stuff last week, so we didn't do last week's show. But we are back and in full force, and we came with something relatively strong. If you've been in this country, or even if you haven't been in this country, you talked about it somewhere, somehow. A cookout, a wedding, a funeral, whatever. And this subject comes up. And tonight's subject, we are going to dive into our use and the energy surrounding it. And so there's a reason why I agreed to do tonight. Because I wanted it to be kind of fresh. If you feel, for anybody who felt offended in saying that, I apologize. But I'm an experimenter, I'm a researcher. And I wanted it to kind of like be fresh in your minds. Just me using that word, for good or for ill, we look at it the way that we do. We feel a certain type of way when we hear certain people use it. Usually when there's somebody that's in the community, in our community, or outside of our community. And then, of course, listening to the tone of how it's used, right? It's a strongly used word. It's used for damn near everything. So tonight, me and I wanted to really open up the space and drop that in there and see what it is that we need to see and do about it going forward, especially with the environment, the constantly changing social environment that we're in right now. Is it something that even needs to be that needs to be used? Is it something that we've truly taken power from? Is it something that we even know the true history on? So it's a big thing. It's a big to do. So we had a first question, but since I made the introduction the way that I did, my first question to drop into the forum here for, of course, everybody to touch on: how did you feel when I called you? How did you feel when I made that welcome and said, that made that little addition to our introduction? I said, what's going on, man? And that's for everybody. So we are monitoring chats open and being monitored. You can take your mics off and whatever you have to share.
Well, I can start. I cringed. I don't like it. So, and we talked about that prior to you saying it.
Even with you knowing I was going to do it.
Yes, I did. I cringed. Yes.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
When I made the introduction, I said, and I said the basic introduction of like, hey, you guys, welcome back to the TalkSpace, and then I also said, what's good, my nigga? How did you feel
the question.
So crazy.
I'm sorry. After the introduction.
Mm-hmm.
You know what?
He said, "How did it make you feel?"
How did you feel? How did you feel having me use that word to refer to y'all?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, Robert, we hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. Because there's a bunch of us sitting here, it didn't faze me at all because I hear it so much. So I wasn't offended. Now, if it had come from another race, I'd have been ready to fight. Now, I know that's not a good thing, but it's because there's a bunch of us. I actually didn't hear you say it until you said it the second time.
Right.
Now, I don't know if I'm that desensitized to it coming from us, but that was my reaction.
Wow.
That's fair. And I'll say this to you, Robert. I'm not going to describe a good or bad connotation to this just yet, because it is conditional. If I were any other race saying it, I'm sure I would have gotten a different response. If I were, white, if I was white or Asian or Latino, and I was sitting up here and I was like, so what's going on, niggers? You know, I just, all mics would have been off, chat line would have been going off. No, he did. It would have been a whole bunch of no, he didn't, and who do you think you are, and can we keep him off of this, and all that type of stuff. Also, you made a very good point of saying who's in the space, not even just who's saying it, but who's the audience that they're saying it to. We happen to have an audience tonight that is, for as much as I know, we're all Black here right now. So that matters as well. So for you to be the first responding to that, that's super duper important to take into account. Also talking about the level of sensitivity that you have towards it, and how that is a portion that can be taken by virtue of what your conditioning of it is, and then also understand the environment that you're in. So you said a whole lot right there, and I appreciate you saying that. Anybody else? Mic's up, chat's open. How did you feel? What was your first take on it when I said that?
There, I have a comment. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So my name's Melissa. I am Black. I know I am not on screen. And for me personally, when I am talking to friends, particularly friends I've had for a long time, that's a word that we use very loosely, in jest, right? We almost do it, we do it jokingly, right? It's just like, I literally just got off the phone with one of my friends, and that is the way we greet each other. To the last person's comment about being in mixed company, I think for me, I do recognize that it does, the connotation of the word, it invokes things in people, and I'm very mindful of when I use the word around people who may be slightly older. So I'm mid-30s, and I noticed that when I had these conversations with people who may be my father, my mother's generation, it hits very different. And so I'm very mindful to not use the word then, because it registers very differently, right? And I'm respectful of that. And I am no linguist. I am I don't profess to be, but so smart. But I do know that language evolves, and I feel like the N-word, has definitely taken on a new kind of meaning, in a sense of camaraderie that not our ancestors, but like our elders and our ancestors were not privy to, right? The language that word had power that was used against us, as opposed to now, my generation, younger generations, like it is just another moniker to address other Black people, right? But I also think intention is everything, right? So shout out to Solange, and on her song, she was like, do nothing without intention. And I think it has evolved into a word that I'm not sure if we really are intentional about using it. I think it's just it's a filler word. It's like another cuss word, right? You use the S word or the F word. It's just a filler. And whether it's good or bad, I do see how it has evolved. And I think moving forward, it will be something that Black folks just use. And I'm not necessarily saying that I'm for or against it, but I do think we need to start thinking about the intention of it, because what is it really saying if I just address you on the street like, hey nigga, versus like, hey king or hey queen, or other monikers, and I know a lot of people are throwing out there. So that's my take on the N-word.
Thank you.
No doubt. Appreciate that. I gotta tell you, we have one more person who has a comment. The individual on the Galaxy. You have something to add? No? Okay.
Hello?
Hi. Yeah. Hi.
Hi, I'm new to the group, and I am of the senior group.
Okay.
When, back in the day, when you used that word, it had very negative meanings to it. If back there was a time in the dictionary, you could look up that word, and you know how you have meanings, one meaning, another meaning, a second meaning,
Yes.
a third meaning. Well, we were the third meaning. The first meaning was a very negative, a low down, no good person. I forgot what the second meaning was, and then the third meaning was that it related to people of the Negroid race.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I was coming up, if you used that word, that was a word that meant you wanted to fight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You would never, ever use that word. You could call him anything else but the child of God, but you would not call somebody a nigger.
Right.
Because that meant you wanted to die.
Mm-hmm.
But as time goes on, each generation looks at it at a different way. Now, if you look in the dictionary, the first thing gives you a meaning that it relates to us.
Yes.
It's no more first and second and third. We are the first. So I still get offended when the rappers and anyone else said, hey, nigga, that's my nigga. No, you are not a nigga. You are a person. You are an African-American person. A nigga back in the day could have meant a white person, a Latino, a Chinese. It was a meaning that you were just the type of person that you were. It didn't, the first meaning didn't have a color to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now it does.
Mm-hmm.
And we brought that on ourselves. So if you want to look at yourself as a nigga, that's fine. I'm not looking at myself as a nigga. I'm an African American. And I think it's sad that we have gotten to that point where we can call each other a negative name, such as it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of why we first of all, thank you for sharing with that.
Thank you.
It's a slightly different perspective on it, and it's part of one of the reasons why we decided to touch on the subject, because there are so many schools of thought on it. I told Nene when we were doing this show, I said, because between the two of us, I'm the researcher out of the two, just to go digging for it, for the uses of it and the history behind it. There are as many histories behind it as there are people in this forum right now. Some people are saying that the NIGGA form is now supposed to be viewed as a completely separate word, even though it has its historical draw from the derogatory. Most definitions have it as a contemptuous form, or contemptuous or derogatory form of referring to a black person. And there's another definition that says, well, it refers to any dark-skinned ethnicity. And then the socioeconomic version that our friend the Galaxy spoke about was referring to anybody who can be viewed as lazy, or I have one here, a member of a class or group of people who are systematically subjected to discrimination or unfair treatment. So now they're like, oh, we're looking to refer to anybody. And then we're like, and then there's the other one that I was sharing with you. There are some that are of the belief that it is derived from the Ethiopian word negus, which refers to a monarch or somebody of royalty or somebody of leadership. So that's like another form of saying, oh, that's a king right there. So there are, and I double checked on that word. Yes, it is an actual word in Ethiopia. Yes, that really referred to a king or a monarch or somebody of position or authority, somebody who demands respect. In that context, you got a lot of people that are like, well, this is what it means. It's become one of the most flexible in, I was about to say American culture, but I say in world culture, period. it is one of those things. So it really, I think it's more so boiling down to what you believe it to be or what you refer to it as. I'm a stickler for original meanings of stuff, which is one of those things why I don't like calling women female dogs, because I'm a stickler for original meanings and stuff. Now, I'm about to call myself a hypocrite because as much as I understand the original meaning of the word and how it was brought to bear upon us people, I ain't even going front. I will touch on what Melissa said and say, yeah, I use it. I do. Mimi and I joke around and sometimes I'll use the word joking, and she knows it. She'll say something off the wall, and I'm looking at her. Really? No. And we laugh. So there's a lot to be said about the connotation in which it's being used, who's saying it, and to whom it's being said to. So when you hear that really kind of touches on our first question, which was how do you feel when you hear it? How do you feel when you see it being used? There was word being made of when we talk about it in terms of how it's being used in music, which has been a fairly recent thing. So now what you got?
So, I don't know if you guys ever read the book by William Randall, Nigger. Anyone?
Oh wow, that's no. The actual word. That's the actual title of the book. Let me write that down.
Yes, it's a really good book. And I mean, I read it years ago. It actually talks about this word and all the things that like we're touching base on with it now. In my opinion, like I've used it. I've gone from never using it to using it to at this point not really using it.
Okay.
But I think it's important to point out that different people have different experiences that informs their reaction to the word.
Yes.
So I think just like with any other like racial epithet or slur, these things depending on how you're using it. I've used the hard ER when I'm mad as heck, that's for sure.
Yes.
Deliberately too. So I mean, doesn't make it right, but I was making the point. I think I got my point across. Wouldn't have been able to get the point across if I would have did the instead of
Right.
But I think that that's something to point out too. A lot of the young people that use the word in terms of like the cultural aspects, like with music and the movies and things like that, they are not really able. Most of them are not. As much as we think our young kids, like my teenager, he's 18. So as much as we may think that they can understand the experiences that we're trying to communicate to them, most of them still don't get it because many of them have been shielded from a lot of the experience that will help put this into perspective for them. Right. So they only know the use of it in the way that it's used in like the popular culture. Right. But when you're someone that's older and you may have different access to, you have experienced different experiences, and you also had a different type of education, because a lot of their educational experiences don't really touch on our history in America that deeply anymore. And then, now that I think about it, when I was in school, I had to seek out the information myself, going to the library, talking to great grandparents, talking to aunts and uncles. And that's where I got the majority, the real education from. But if I had to probably be honest about it, like when I was younger, I never had any of those like racial experiences. I can remember taking a road trip with the family to the South, and the car breaking down, it was like dark, and I knew, because at that time, from having hearing stories and things like that, that I was really afraid because we were in the South and, you know, I just knew the stories.
Yeah.
But had I not had heard those stories, I wouldn't have been able to, you know, I just would have been like, oh, we're just broken down. No big deal. And actually it was some white people that came and helped us, and I was like really shocked about that. But yeah, I feel like that's where we are. I think that we're never going to collectively come to an agreement on how to use the word. I do think that, you know, it's just a common agreement that white people can't use the word. I don't know if you saw that video of, what's his name? Delroy Lindo. And he was doing an interview. And the white guy was saying, well, you know, I can't say the word. And they was talking about why we use the word. And Delroy Lindo was like, look at that, say it. And he's like, you know I can't say it. He's like, no, come on, get out and say it. Come on, I'll say it with you. No. And it was such a funny, I'll send it to you, Kanisha, and then you can share it with everybody.
Okay.
But it was hilarious. But I think that, you know, we're never going to come to an agreement, I don't think, you know, about it. But that's just my opinion.
Thank you for sharing. I have a question that I was thinking about too when we were going through this. Is it a matter of because everyone's saying, okay, now that the meaning of it changed, then it doesn't mean the same that it meant back in the day or whatever. But is it the fact of, it doesn't mean the same, or is it that concept, if you can't beat them, join them? So it's kind of like where I'm going to take something negative that you're saying about me, and I'm going to make it a positive. If I'm making it a positive, it doesn't hurt so much. It doesn't hurt as bad. So I'm, as opposed to saying that you can't use it and nobody can use it, I'm just going to take it and make it into something that makes me feel better about it being used against me. And that's open to anyone. It was just
I have a comment. So I think that we've lost control over the word because it's global now, right? So I think that, so I'm Haitian, and the word itself doesn't have the same impact on me that it does on African Americans, rightfully so, right? And so when you think about, like, I mean, it doesn't matter if I'm Haitian or Jamaican or whatever, if a person is calling out my name, you know, they're using that word, like, to me, it doesn't matter. To them, it doesn't matter. I am that word to them, right? But globally, you know, with hip hop and rap and just that word being used in music, you know, African Americans are idolized across the world. Like, the music, like, is celebrated, and Black culture is like something that everyone wants to be. Like, there's this persona, this bigger than life persona that international Black people, or, you know, African people in the African diaspora look at African American music and the culture as like something that's amazing. And so when they're using that word, it's like kind of like, oh, I want to be like African Americans. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember I was reading this article about this Ethiopian man, an African man who lived in Australia. And when he presented himself as an Ethiopian in Australia, he was discriminated against. But the moment that he put on the African American persona, it was like, oh, you're from the US and you're African American. Do you know Kanye West? Like, you know, all of that. And so I just think that if you're trying to, the last person that spoke, I agree. Like, at this point, we've lost control. And so it's like, then we have to take ownership of it. We have to take, we have to then, what's the word? Yeah, we have to take ownership of the word and reinvent it. So, like, art is an imitation of life, and life is an imitation of art. And when we think about, like, for example, Confederate flags and statues and things like that, and how, like, you know, with the protests, they put George Floyd, his picture on one of the like Virginia monuments. And what they did was they reconfigured it. They reclaimed it and then turned it into an art form. I think that we have to do the same thing.
Whew. Lord, coming with the heat. That's some strong stuff. I saw hands up. I saw Lakeisha and then Robert.
Robert can go ahead.
Okay, Robert, what you got on that?
I don't think the meaning of the word has changed at all. Because when a white person uses it, they're not using it as they say nigga. And they don't care if you're Haitian, they don't care if you're from Brooklyn, they don't care if you're from Compton, if you're a Blood or a Crip. When them white cops that shoot black folk, they shoot niggas. And they wouldn't care where they if they're from Ethiopia, if they're from Nigeria. So we kind of have to, and like I said before, I know I was desensitized to the word. And part of it is because I've been listening to DMX songs for the last 5 days. And he used niggas in every other bar. But the people who still use the word, they're using it in a negative way, and they're not trying to celebrate nobody. See, people celebrate black culture, but they don't like black people. You see, you've seen it in oh God, what was the Spike Lee movie? I think it was Do the Right Thing. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about Michael Jordan. And they said, oh, you wouldn't call Michael Jordan. And they go, oh, well, he's Michael Jordan. They like the fact that he's a celebrity basketball player. But if he was out on the side of the road down south back in the day, he would face the same thing that any other black person would face.
Talk about it, yeah.
That's how I see it.
Mm-hmm. I agree, yeah.
That's just my 2 cents on that.
And that's like the boy that just got killed too. I didn't know his mom was white.
Sure.
They didn't know his mom was
Who's
white.
that? Who?
Dante, right?
Dante.
Oh,
yes.
okay. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Did not know that. Did not know that either.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, we have another hand up. Our wonderful guest on the Galaxy. What do we have to add?
Okay, that's me. Yes, it's the old lady.
I'm not going to do that.
The way I see it, history in some ways is evolutionary.
Right.
If you have not, if you look at the movie 42, Jackie Robinson, and he was on there, and one of the players from the other team was calling him nigga, trying to get him upset because that did upset him, but he could not fight back. We don't know, but younger people don't understand the racism. It's coming back around now, but then they're calling them niggas. No matter, that's in their mind, that's in their brain. We will always be niggers to them. Like the gentleman said, you could be Michael Jordan, you could be, look, the President of the United States, he was still a nigger. So it's gonna be that way until we have to change within ourselves and not call ourselves such a negative name. If we stop it, maybe they will look at us and say, oh no, we can't call them that. I'm not gonna call them that. But we allow it. Because the generation that's here now, they are just now experiencing racism. And they don't understand the history behind being called a nigger. That was, you were hung. People, men and women were hung. They were niggers. They were hung. They were burned like a piece of meat. I mean, they were dragged, limbs, everything taken apart because they felt as though you were lower than the dirt. So you got to understand where this comes from. And using that today, I would never call you one because you are not one. We have to learn how to respect each other and not call each other such negative names. We got to start there. I'm done.
That's real talk. And I love the fact that we are being so forthright as far as saying what it, as far as calling it what it really is. We have a lot of people that are of the mindset of saying, well, we shouldn't use it at all, right? So then when we say to somebody outside of our community, don't use it, we have that foundation of saying, well, we don't use it ourselves, so you don't use it, right? Then you have people who are of the other school of thought of saying, oh, like Nini was asking, oh, we're taking our power back from it. It's this. It's this now. We're not saying nigger, er, which is derogatory. We're saying nigga, which is now, supposed to be something of familiarity, something of being okay. But that's still an issue, because even for people outside of the community that try to go along with that school of thought, they will still get punched right in the neck. They'll be saying, "Why didn't you say nigger? I said nigga." You still can't do it. So it was an attempt at a solution. I personally see it as a messy attempt. So I think if we're not going to be unified in terms of going one way or the other, it's not something. I think ultimately it's not something we should use. We're not going to be unified as far as how it should be, and who should. So we have that there. All right, we have some additional comments. We have Chanel. Come on through.
So, after hearing, I forgot her name, speak, one thing that came to mind is that in order for us to make any headway, I think, in terms of not using this slur, we have to look at the forest and not just the trees. As people, we tend to compartmentalize. As people who I've seen it where we're, comparing traumas to, the Asian traumas, the Jewish traumas, and this and that. We're compartmentalizing too much. When you look at the forest, the grand scheme of things, and the use of slurs and what the intent of using them is supposed to do for a person, to hurt them, to dehumanize them, to do something to negate, right? Then we need to have that larger conversation of, for all types of slurs, we need to stop using them. We need to recognize that not one group of people is better than another. Not one trauma is worse than another. We have to start moving towards what it means just to be good human beings. And if we continue to compartmentalize and separate this from that, then we're not going to get anywhere, because it's going to continue to, perpetuate. Because when you really realistically look at historical experiences, white people have committed crimes against humanity, against every race of people, every melanated people on the face of this earth. And it's always been at the white man's hands. So if we really wanted to have some leeway and make some change, then we really need to get together and have this conversation about what it means to be a human being. What are the things that hurts us? What are the things that need to change? And that includes these slurs. But as long as the conversation is so isolated and compartmentalized, I don't think that, because if you're waiting for someone to, like, you have these like little incidents of, oh, this person said the N-word, and you see it on video, or, they have a hot mic on or whatever, and then they get fired. But then that's only until the next time it happens again, because it most definitely does happen again.
Yes. Absolutely. I put in the thing, one of the first examples that I thought of when we were putting the show together was the example from, I want to say about 2012, when the comedian and actor Michael Richards, who's best known for his role as Kramer on Seinfeld. And I swear, I think I can count on one hand how many episodes of Seinfeld I watched, but I knew him well because he was one of the most, aside from Jerry, he was like the most standout, character on the show that I can think of. And there was this whole tirade that he did at the Laugh Factory. I forget exactly where. I think that's West somewhere. Did this whole tirade. He's just like angry, not even like play angry, like comedian angry, but like visually angry, and he's just throwing it out there. He's a nigga, and he caught all types of hell over it. It was in Boston. Okay, thank you. It was in Boston, so not even what that's going on here. And caught all types of hell for it. And we have this thing. It's a really gross, and what we're all talking about here. What we're really saying is that there is this really gross and stark and very acute double standard that we're operating in. They're saying rudeness spirit. Yeah. I haven't even seen them since then. I haven't seen them pop back up or anything like that. And it happens to a lot of people. That get caught in it. That one reporter just after Kobe passed away, and that one reporter was who allegedly mistakenly said Los Angeles, Lakers, but ended up saying Los Angeles Knickers. And I'm sitting there looking at it like, how was that a mistake? Like, how was that a slip of the tongue? Like, what were you thinking about? No, you said what you said, right? But I'm sitting here and I'm listening to all this, and I just want to kind of like throw this into the space as far as saying like, why are we? And this wasn't even the question that I was thinking about. But why is our community that feels like we have to try and take the power of that? I don't hear Italians calling each other blocks. I don't hear Jewish people calling each other kikes. I don't hear Spanish. I don't hear Latin people calling each other sticks. I don't hear Korean people calling each other slopes. I had to learn that. I learned that one from a book way back in middle school, how that was even a derogatory term for them. It's supposed to be referring to how their forehead slopes forward, and so on and so forth. But all these derogatory terms that are applied to all these other communities, and nobody else that I know of tries to quote unquote take the power back from these derogatory sayings. As far as I know, that is very exclusive to us. Why do we do it? Why do we feel like we have to do that when nobody else is? Like for them, it just remains derogatory. Don't call me that. You will have this whole community come at you to call somebody that. Even inside of their community, they don't call each other that unless they want to beat down. Why are we like, ha ha ha, yeah, my why are we the community that does that? I'm gonna throw that out there.
I think part of it.
Robert didn't know.
Well, I think part of it, Chad, is part of what you said. They're community. Black people are the most fractured people in America. Everybody else is united. Everybody else builds their communities up. They put businesses in their own communities. They make sure the schools in their communities are good. They uplift the women in their community. They do all of it. Black folk, we always seem to have a problem with it. So I think that's part of the reason. I don't know if that's the whole reason, but I definitely think that's part of it.
I'll definitely take that as being part of it, and I would agree with you and say that that's part of the root of it. So yeah, I'll go there with you on that. Now,
I agree. I was about to say something very similar, that we as a people, we are very, very damaged. Like the traumas that we've suffered
continue to suffer.
Always do, and continue to suffer. And lots of times we're not seen as humans, and we still have those those defense mechanisms and things that people who experience trauma put into place. Our communities are so many different factors that contribute to continued, just hurt. And we can't take away from the fact that this may just be one of our defense mechanisms. And irregardless of what anyone may think about it, any being is going to have some type of defense mechanism to try to protect them from some type of, hurt. Now, the work like combating it is down and really outline is for the future. If not for us, then the ones that's going to come in the next generations, and what are the steps that we need to take in order to achieve that vision.
Mm-hmm.
We're too fragmented, we're too divided, and there's nothing going into our communities that are helping them to heal. We can put so much money, if we say, give us money, give us reparations, give us that. I've never seen examples of that ever. We really need to identify what it is that we need, so that we can collectively, move towards a vision of health and well-being.
I'm with you on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. Those two, between the two of you, that's really, I feel like that's really solid. Again, might not be the whole answer, but I think that's really solid. Starts for us a little bit. One of the reasons why we have a double standard is because there is no unified, even within our community, there is no unified stance on it. There isn't the same viewpoint of it in Cali as there is down in Texas, as there is in Atlanta, as there is here in the tri-state area, as there is out in Chicago or whatever, or what have you, or across, or overseas. There is no solid unified stance on it, where if you say it here, you could get, you could lose your life, and then if you fly to LA and use it there, you could also potentially, lose your life. And that's part of the issue. That's a very major part of the issue. Nini, what would you say is your take on it? Anything to add to that? Or?
No, I would just go back to what I said before, is that it softens the blow for us. I think that the whole, if you can't beat them, join them, and we continue to use it, and other cultures don't, because other cultures like, no, it's not okay, and we're not going to make it okay. And because we've been torn down and continue to be torn down, and it's something that you know how you want to take, if someone says something negative about you, and you take that negative and make, like, own it, that we're taking onus to it, because then it hurts less. Like I said, it hurts less if I now hear it, I continue to hear it, but oh no, it's a term of endearment. So when they say it, yes, it still stings, but it's something now that I've taken on as kind of like a cushion to, we can say it to ourselves, but oh no, you still can't say it. But it doesn't hurt as bad when we hear the word being said, because it's being said amongst us. So I still take it as the you can't beat them, join them thing. And again, like you said, other cultures don't accept it. So why else would we, if not for that?
Yeah, that's part. I think that's solid. And I think the question that's forming in my head on this is, well, how effective of a strategy was that? If it still hurts to hear other people use it. If we're doing this whole, we're taking our power back, we took our power back from the gun, said it's our word now. Why does it still hurt us to have other people say it? Like if that was oh, okay, we got Eric says unique syndrome, which is to embrace being overweight even though it bothers you. So, well, how effective is the embracing then? If it still bothers you? you know, shouldn't the end result? I love that you brought that up. Shouldn't that be? And that's so crazy because Monique ain't even fat no more. She tried it, and then it ultimately got to the point where she was like, I don't even remember how much weight she dropped, but she don't look nothing like what she did when she put out that book. That was like her famous kind of like putting her foot down on it with a skinny women are evil, and that was her book on it. So for us to try and say or to put this whole narrative out there of taking our power from, you know, this, that, and third, is it really that effective if we're still ready to go to blows over somebody else being using it? And then to go into one of the last questions that we have for it, if it is to be used as a term of endearment, why can't other people who do love us use it? That's one. And I'll kind of go first with that a little bit, because I do have very good friends who are white, and I do have very good friends who are Asian. I have very good friends who are Spanish. And I don't only mean like just like good friends, but like very good friends and stuff like that. And I can honestly say I'd probably still look at them some type of way if they would use it casually around me, even though I know that they're not, you know, faking the funk, so to speak, in terms of saying that they actually love me as a person and they do me not by the color of my skin, but the content of my character and so on and so forth. But I would still look at them. I know I would still look at them some type of way, and that might be a little bit hypocritical because I use it. But I know that they love me, but they can't. Right? So that'll be the last question that I go to. We can just we can write that the rest of the way home on this. But for those of us who do or who can look at it as a term of endearment, why is it still an issue if it is an issue? For those of us who said that they do genuinely love and care about us, but might not be of the same community as we are. Why is it still an issue when they use it? So there that is. Keisha?
I don't know. I wonder if it goes back to what somebody said in terms of intent. So you may have a group of people that say, I'm using this as a term of endearment, and I use it with my friends. Like, say, for instance, I use the word bitch. I'm not going to say certain things around my mother, but I may say to my sister, or to Chanel, like, please, bitch, please. I don't think I've ever said that to either of them. But my girlfriend, Faye, I would not use that term with her, and we're very, very close because I know that's not something. First of all, she doesn't like cursing, but that's not something that we don't have that. We don't use that type of language with each other, but I could say it to maybe Nene. I just think it maybe goes back to intent. Like, why are you using that word? And so, if Chad is saying the intent is like it's a term of endearment, but for Chanel, she's saying, that word. I don't know, that word. It really bothers me. So if you use that word with her, she's not gonna. It's a word that's being used differently by different people, I guess is what I'm trying to say, if I make sense. So unless the word meant the same, I don't know, I guess to everybody that was using it, I don't even know if this makes sense, but this is the way that my mind is processing it. It would always have it would always garner a different reaction. So if you said, I asked my mom when you guys were talking, would she have a problem using that word? I've actually heard my mom use that word before. My mom was up in her 70s, and she was honest, and she said, if a person of color said it to her, she probably would not be bothered by it. But if a person, and she's from the South, but if a Caucasian person said it to her, she would definitely be bothered by it. So I just think that, I don't know, I keep on going back to intent. It's the intent. I wouldn't want, I'm not saying that I've never used the word, but I think that we use it too loosely. And I also think that people of color, especially Black people, we're always trying to just let things slide. We let a lot of things slide. We kind of just, we're trying to always be the people that overlook, people doing things to us. We're always like, I don't know, we are sometimes viewed as the bottom. Like, people can say and do whatever they want to do to us. And we're like, oh, but they were, but not everyone is like that. My husband says that all the time. Like, and sometimes when he talks, I'm like, hey, he's so harsh. But then there are times when he's saying things and I'm like, but it's true. But you want to have that, that kind and that I mean, for me, that Christian heart where you know that not every white person is the same. You know, not everybody thinks the same, but sometimes it just is what it is. And I think that a lot of times we just will not own that people have negative, intent. You don't mean you any good, and you just don't want to acknowledge that. Although that doesn't answer the question. So I just think that it's, I don't know. I don't use the word a lot, but it makes me think of other words that are used that we wouldn't use it with, certain people.
Okay. See, and that's why we bring subjects like this, because we don't ever stop at the surface with it. You guys have brought some wonderful depth to the subject as far as getting to the root of it. Is it the fact that we have that tribe? Is that what caused us to try and grab this, quote unquote, grab this back as a means of having some leverage, or whether real or perceived? Did we as a community make that attempt to do it, to say, okay, well, we're still being downtrodden, but at least you can't have this. Like, this is ours now. We're taking it. We're quote unquote taking it back. And even though it still bothers us, the fact that you used it, we're going to. You know what? I'm saying it, and it doesn't even. I'm trying to make it make sense. And it's a little tough for me to even do it right now, because
the reason you can't is because it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Right.
So that's why you can't elaborate on it. It's like, who said that this word, using this word, gave us any power? Like, who made that crap up? And then guess what? Everybody's following behind, like,
Howard,
it sure does. Like,
what?
Thank you, because it's made up. It doesn't even make any sense. It's like, how could you take something that somebody made a good point? I think it was Chanel or maybe Miss Roberta, when they said you have people, or maybe Robert, have people that were hung from trees when that word was being hurled at them.
Yes.
They were killed in front of their children. And I'm not saying I never use the words. I'm not coming up here trying to act like I'm holier than that. I have used the word before, and multiple times. And then you want to use that same word. I think a lot of the younger kids don't even really truly understand, because, like Chanel said, how much of their history do they really know? They're not fully aware, because I'm thinking that a person that is fully aware, even if they are younger, would and has that knowledge, because when you know better, you're supposed to do better. At least you wouldn't use that word, even if you thought it was a term of endearment. You'd be very selective in how you use that word, if you even use it at all. So I think that you can always change, things. I think that this young generation coming, they're just totally different. So I don't see many of them buying into the whole thing that this is not a word that we should use. You're gonna have to use, like somebody talked about, like the hip hop culture and the music culture. You're gonna have to use someone like like if it was a DMX guy, bless his soul, or somebody that is in that type of industry, to say, no, we're not going to use this word anymore. That's how you would get with those younger people. And then the older ones that are already set in their ways using it. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know. It makes no sense after someone said it tonight to even use that word when you know the how it was used in the past. Yes, it's just a word. And so is the word, ugly, or the word bitch, or the word whore. It still has a meaning. You can kind of flip it and twist it and try to fluff it up and make it sound good. It still is what it is. It's just like when people say, can you dress, excuse my mouth, mommy, can you dress shit up? It's still shit, right? Okay. You ain't gonna eat it or do anything like that. Okay. You ain't gonna want it on your table next to your food. It's shit. That's the same thing.
Right.
Yeah. That is a very slippery slope. There's a razor's edge difference between it being, and I'm not saying this as my personally held views, but just as being an observer, there's like a razor's edge difference between it being used as a quote unquote term of endearment and then it being used derogatory. I don't even think we as a community have that collective vigilance to be able to look at all of them as a case by case scenario, which is why like somebody said earlier, we kind of tend to let it slide, and we pick and choose when to be offended over it, and that level of it being conditional. That's it's messy, and it's messy and it's dangerous. And ultimately, I believe it kind of takes value from us, even with us saying that, trying to gain value from it. I think it kind of takes value from us in the fact that it's not even universally recognized, as one thing or the other. It's not universally recognized as good or bad. And I think that level of, like we were saying earlier, that level of fracture and that level of being disjointed and that level of not having a unified stance on it, I think it does us a disservice. So I'm gonna say, I sat here and I was thinking about it earlier, and I said, and I am submitting myself as being accountable to you guys. I am going actually to, and I know you're probably gonna miss it something, but I'm actually gonna try not to use it. And that's something that I've actually gathered from this talk. So thank you guys for that. I'm going to, Lord, I know it's gonna be tough. Because it's such a habit. It is a habit. I ain't even gonna front. But I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna give it a real shot, and I'll let you guys know and keep you guys updated as far as how I'm doing with that. So,
and you know what? I think that's a
I'm gonna go no nigga after that.
For every time you say it, I want to know. That's a huge move. I mean, because it is something that is a habit. It's something that obviously there, with the intent behind it, it's not a negative intent. But we have to think about the history of it and and then my thought process is like we're white people of other cultures, because it's not only white people, are probably sitting back at us and looking and saying, you know what, they don't have to do much work because we're doing it ourselves, right? The more that we take that word and apply it to ourselves, because words have meanings, and meanings, when you think about those things, you act out those things. So not saying that just because someone's calling you a nigga AG that you're gonna go at, but it still puts that it has that negative attachment to it. So they don't have to do much work to kind of keep us down and kind of keep us mentally enslaved, because we're doing it ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I think if you, and I've used it. Trust me, I've used it in the past, and then until I learned more about it and then changed my way of, I've done it. I used to say the actual CH to hey, whatever. But I mean, when you think about the things and then the negative attachments it has to it, it's like, why would if I love someone and trust someone and whatever, and why would I attach that negativity towards that person? Whether it's not the intent to do it, but the history behind it, the meaning behind it still is negative. So why would I do that? And like I said, I cringe when I hear it now, because it's like that, because of the meaning behind it and the origin of it. It was never a term of endearment when it started. So.
Exactly.
So every time I hear it, I want $1.
Directly accountable to you, Nini, and Nini will tell you guys, in our comings and goings, if I use it or not.
Sure will.
And yes, I will. I'll actually agree to that. I will give you $1 for every time that I use it. Let's start with from tonight till a month from now. So today's the 14th.
14th.
All right. So
I'm on it. 14th.
Let's go between now and May 14th.
Yep.
$1 for every time you catch me. $1 for every time you catch me.
Yep.
All right, and that's a lot because we talked to the office. So yeah, we'll definitely do that. Oh God! And as soon as I agreed to that, I'm now wondering what the hell did I just do? But hey, that's evolution for you, right? I guess. So yeah, that is really pretty much all we had for you guys tonight. Just any final thoughts that you have on it, things that we can do as far as improving that situation there. I know it's a lot of work to be vigilant over something like that. I think it's something that we should definitely do. It can't be, and there's a cool way to do it. Like, even for the people around, it's like, hey, I know you're joking, but I really don't feel like you should use that. You know, I know you're like, I know you're just saying something like that. You can call me brother, you can call me sister, you can call me king, you can call me queen, you can call me anything but that within reason. You know, so there's a way to do it. You know, and we could even explain like, hey, like, I know we can say that we are trying to take our power from it and we're trying to turn it into a whole different word, but the fact of the matter is, it comes from a derogatory place. You know, especially within the context of Black people here in America, it comes from a derogatory place. It comes from a disrespectful place. It comes from a place that viewed us as less than human. It comes from a place that viewed us as not being worth having rights. It comes from a place of us being less than. It comes from a place of us being subservient. It comes from a place of us being animals, being viewed as animals. You know, so until that Ethiopian connotation takes over, where we can, you know, and even then, I wouldn't even use the modern version of it. If I'm gonna call you niggas, I'm gonna call you niggas. You know, then that. So to my fellow niggas, no, for real, I'm gonna post that up. I'm gonna send a link to that so that you guys can check it out. But
any final thoughts from anyone? Yeah.
I think a final thought for me is what Chad just said in terms of, you know, if someone is using the word around you and you may have in the past used that word with them, you know, just, you know, saying something about it. And I feel like anything that you really feel passionately about, it won't be work for you. So if you feel very passionately about not using that word or BITCH or any type of profanity, you will put forth a concerted effort not to use it. And don't be, sometimes we just kind of like, kind of go with the flow. And you don't want to be the standout, even as standout person. Like, if that's not the way, if that's a word that you don't want to use, you could be around 10 people and they're using it. They're slinging it back and forth. Just don't use it. And maybe if you make a person that is using it feel uncomfortable enough, then maybe they'll start to think like, wait a minute, every time I say the word, like, you're laughing and joking and, you know, having a good time. But when I use that word, then they kind of, you know, looks like they're cringing or they seem a certain type of way. Maybe that'll make them think, or maybe even, you know, prompt the conversation of why, you know, what's going on. And you can start there, teaching our children not to say certain things. Like, we don't teach them to say things like ugly or be mean, you know, say meaningful things to others. So taking into account how that word may make someone else feel. And other words too, like just profanity. So Faye, I'm not going to be cursing anymore.
I'm with saying the N-word first. I still love cursing. I'm gonna start with N-word first. But yeah, I do not know what's happening with that.
That's good, my sister. Thank you.
Hey, see, we're doing it already. But yeah, okay, thank you, Eric, for that, for posting up the word. You guys, that is the actual word that is used in Ethiopian culture to refer to people of royalty or authority. So it is a word that does command respect. It is supposed to be, it is used as a positive and affirmative word in that culture. So until we can get that movement to be universally held, yeah, I'm placing a personal moratorium on myself. But yeah, so that's, like I said, that's pretty much it that we have. Next week, let me before we even do that. Of course, as always, if you are watching this on YouTube, like, share, and comment. Let us know how you feel about the use of the word, or if you have any ideas on solutions on what we can do to improve our stance as a community on this topic, we definitely welcome it. Any show ideas, as always, you can always send them to us through the comments there on YouTube, through our channel on YouTube, through our Facebook page, which is Him and Her Spaces chat, and also through our email, which is Him and Her TalkSpace podcast at gmail.com, as always. Next week, another hard-hitting one for us in the community, living with addiction. Whether you are somebody who has or is dealing with it personally, or whether you have a loved one who is, we're going to dip into that and what that means for the community. All right, so you guys come back for that. Spread the word, share, roll the space up. We have this set up to take it as many as 100 people. I don't think we haven't gotten past 20. But there's always space. There's always space for it. So call your friends. As opposed to hiding the kids and hiding your wife, bring the kids, bring the wife, bring the husband, bring the significant other, bring the enemies, bring the coworkers, bring the haters. I don't care. Because there's always something to be learned. I'll say that. But yeah. So you guys have a wonderful night. Thank you as always for all of your perspectives and all of your all of your points. That's part of what makes the space so great, and it's part of why you guys come back to it. So and it's part of why we have it, and we love you guys for it. So until next week, and be on the lookout for this month's Soul Space, where we are going to be talking on financial literacy and financial planning. And we're going to have a nice, wonderful panel for that as well, of financial analysts and accountants and so on and so forth. So be on the lookout for that. That will be within the next couple weeks as well, for this month. And just keep a lookout for it, for that, and also for our reaction videos. We have 2 that I'm finishing editing right now that we did on DMX, God rest his soul, and his impact on the community, and also what just happened this past weekend, which was a flurry of White Lives Matter protests. There were actual official White Lives Matter protests. If you didn't see this on the news, definitely check that video out. That will be up tonight. So you guys can check out the Him and Her Spaces YouTube channel for that as well. It's all right. So until next week, when we see you guys for our Living with Addiction episode, we'll see you back here in Him and Her TalkSpace, where as always there are 2 coaches,
1 space, and 0 reservation.
0 reservation.
Yay.
Right. God bless you guys. Have a
Thank you
wonderful night.
guys.